Yo, what is good people, Ben from Lover of Tech, and we are back with another video. This time, camera comparison. Galaxy S24 Ultra versus the Pixel 8 Pro versus the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and we are going to test everything. And that's front-facing cameras, rear-facing cameras, daylight, low light, every single mode to pretty much see which comes out on top between the Ultra and the Pro Max cameras and the Pro from Pixel. Yeah, so without wasting much time, let's get into the specs and then into the camera comparison. I'm giving away a Galaxy S24 Ultra. Yes, you did not hear wrong. One lucky subscriber is going to have a chance to win a brand new Galaxy S24 Ultra for all the support that you showed me in 2023, for giving me the best year in terms of content and making these videos for you. I want to give you the opportunity to win a Galaxy S24 Ultra, to give back and say a massive thank you for all the support. So make sure you stick around to the end so you know all the details about how you can get a chance to win a Galaxy S24 Ultra. So we can get into the main camera comparison video straight away. I'm going to assume that you know the camera specs of the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro and pretty much the majority of the Galaxy S24 Ultra, because it is building on the same as the S24 Ultra. What is new this time is the new 5x 50 megapixel dedicated telephoto zoom lens, which is larger, bigger pixels, better OIS and image stabilization, and should be better low light performance. We're going to test it all. Now, the best way to watch this camera comparison is on a large display with headphones at the highest resolution and frame rate at 4K 60. There will be chapters linked in the description below, but without wasting much time, I'm excited for this one. Let's get into the main camera comparison. One thing that was interesting that I did notice within the settings is that scene optimizer for the Galaxy S24 Ultra has been disabled by default. Compared to before, this was something that was on, but yeah, I've left it as it is, and I'm just gonna run it to see how it behaves without scene optimizer. Maybe I might do some video follow-ups and shorts to show the difference with it and without it this time round on the new Galaxy S24 Ultra. We are starting with the front-facing camera in 4K UHD 60 frames a second on the Galaxy S24, Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and just seeing how the image quality is like, stabilization, colors, detail, and quick run. We are still on the front-facing camera now in the 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recording mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Again, just seeing how the image quality, dynamic range, sharpness, detail and colors is like, as well as stabilization. Quick run. Again, we're still on the front-facing camera, still recording in a 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recorder mode, but the difference here is with the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max, we do have the video portrait mode background blur effect with the cinematic video. This is not supported on the Pixel 8 Pro. So yes, it is recorded in 4K 30, but you cannot do the cinematic blur on a front-facing camera. This is limited to the main rear camera, and it is limited to 1080p at 24 FPS. Now, a couple of things to go through when it comes to the shooting differences when it comes to the video portrait mode for the Samsung versus the iPhone and the front-facing camera. So here we are. You can actually adapt and change the blur from the default 5 to the 7 while you're recording. You can also switch between the different blur effects. And of course, you can pause recording and continue recording on the same clip, which is really great to see. Now, the iPhone doesn't allow you to change any of the effects while you're recording, but after you finish recording, you can actually edit the blur position, blur intensity after the fact. This is something you can't do on a Samsung still. We are now recording in the 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recorder mode on the rear cameras on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Again, just seeing how the image quality is like, sharpness, detail, dynamic range and stabilization. Quick run. As we are recording in 4K 30, all three camera systems do give you absolute flexibility to switch between the rear lenses and keep recording at the same time. Now in the ultra wide, quick run. So we're going to switch to 2x mode. 2x mode. And this is the SAP Center, San Jose, where Unpacked for Galaxy S24 was held. Now here is where we're going to zoom in, and we're going to go to 3x on a Pixel 8 Pro, 3x on a Galaxy S24 Ultra, and 3x here. Steady walk. See how the stabilization is like. And what we're now going to do is switch to the 5x, which is the new dedicated. Just going to do a steady walk and see how stable it is. Now, test 4. Dynamic range. X, 10x. And 10x. And back to 1x. Here's one of the things where you get maximum flexibility on these camera systems. The iPhone doesn't actually allow you to pause recording and continue on the same clip, but you can take pictures at the same time. The Pixel 8 Pro does allow you to pause the clip and continue recording on the same clip and actually take pictures. But the Galaxy allows you to do not just both in terms of take pictures and also pause recording and continue on the same clip. You can also flip to the front-facing camera. So as you can see, you're still recording on the same clip, 4K 30, you can switch to the selfie camera and then back to the rear cameras and still take pictures and pause recording. Absolute flexibility, still the best in the game when it comes to this Samsung. Good work. Now we're recording in the 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Again, just seeing how the image quality, colors, detail, sharpness, dynamic range is like, and stabilization. Quick run. Now to really go down how flexible it is, 4K 60 has improved on all camera systems. One thing that Google did set the trend from the Pixel 7 Pro was the ability to switch between all the lenses in 4K 60. This is something that iPhones followed through with the new iPhone 15 Pro Max. And now Samsung has joined the party. Yes, you can switch between the lenses in 4K 60 without having to stop recording and continue on the same clip. But you know what's even better? Samsung allows you to do this while still pausing and continue on the same clip and taking pictures. Google allows you to do this as well. Apple doesn't allow you to pause recording and continue on the same clip. You can take pictures, but the benefit is Samsung allows you to still switch to the front-facing camera. Samsung, I'm taking credit for this one. Everything I said you needed to improve when it came to the 4K 60 recording flexibility on here, you've done with the S24 Ultra. This is fantastic, and this now officially has the most flexible 4K 60 recording on any smartphone I've tested and used. While you're doing this, you can still pause recording, continue on the same clip, take pictures, and then flip back to the selfie. Now you're back to the rear cameras. Ultra wide, 1x, 3x, 5x, 10, 6x. What more can you want? Now on the ultra wide, quick drop. Let's switch things around. Quick test of dynamic range. 1x, 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 2, 2x, 2x. It's just a steady walk during golden hour. I'm going to switch to 3x mode. 3x and then 3x to match. Again, just a steady walk. Maximum flexibility in 4K 60. We love to see it. And 5x. Much smoother lens transitions on Samsung as well. Really matching what Apple are producing. And it looks to me, the stabilization on the 5x is better. X. And 10x. And we're going to bring it back to the 1x, 1x, 1x. We are now recording in the 8K 30 frames per second video recording mode on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra versus the 4K 30 on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This is on the 1x main 200 megapixel main wide sensor, and this is great to see. No additional crop, full stabilization, and great color accuracy. Just a slight run. And just remember the flexibility you have. You press and hold, you can go to 2, 4, and 5 when it comes to digitally cropping in on the main sensor in 8K. And you can of course pause recording and continue on the same clip and still take pictures at the same time. We are still now recording in the 8K 30 frames per second video recording mode, but now we're on the 5x mode versus the 4K 30 on the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro. Thanks to the new 50 megapixel dedicated 5x telephoto, you now have the ability to shoot and record in 8K 30 on the dedicated periscope zoom lens. Wow, this is crazy good to see from Samsung. And in fact, you can actually extend all the way up to an additional 10x on the main 5x sensor. And look at the clarity. This is insane. So yes, 8K video recording on the 5x dedicated zoom on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So we are now in the super steady action mode and active stabilization mode respectively on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro. Now the Pixel 8 Pro is limited to just 1080p 30, no 60 FPS, no 1440p option. Whereas the Samsung does have 1440p and the iPhone does have 2.8K up to 60 FPS. I would say the iPhone still has the most advantage as you can do it in the 2X and the 5X. The Samsung is on the Ultra Wide and the 1X. We'll start with the Ultra Wide and the 1X on the Pixel, Ultra Wide on the iPhone. Fast run. And 3, 2, 1. Again, still in action mode. super steady, as well as the active. We switched to the 1X on the Galaxy S24 Ultra and 1X on the iPhone in their 2.8K QHD 60 FPS respective mode. Yep, fast run. We've now switched to the 2X mode on the Pixel 8 Pro. There isn't a 2X mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. A quick pause of the video. I did actually receive an update to the camera app that actually allows now a 2X mode for the super steady for Samsung on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So that's something that just came in. Didn't have time to test it, but it's something that just came in right now, so I thought I'd mention it. There is a 2X mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We're gonna do a fast run. And we're showcasing the action mode on a 5X, 2.8K, 60 FPS on the dedicated 5X sensor for the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and a fast run. We are now in the video portrait mode and cinematic mode respectively for each camera for the Galaxy S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Pixel 8 Pro. Again, Pixel 8 Pro is just limited to the main camera sensor at the back, 1080p, 24 FPS, and no adjustability while you're doing it in terms of recording and also after recording. Now for the Galaxy S24 Ultra, you do have the ability to actually change the blur strength and also the blur type while you are recording, but you cannot do this after you finish recording. You don't have that flexibility on the iPhone while you're recording, but after you finish recording, you can of course edit the blur position, blur strength, so you do have that flexibility there. And again, Samsung and iPhone do allow you to do this in 4K 30. We are still in the video portrait mode, but we've now switched to the 2X mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. You don't have this mode on the Google Pixel 8 Pro, and just seeing how the blur effect is in video in real time. We're still in the video portrait mode for both cameras, and we are now in the 3X mode. Now in the camera UI, the 3X mode is slightly hidden. You do have to press and hold on to the 2X. You do show up with the 3X. And the 3X for the Samsung is actually using an optical sensor, whereas the iPhone doesn't have a 3X optical sensor. It's actually still cropping in on the main sensor. So consider it, the image quality is definitely going to favor what we're seeing on the Samsung. And of course the Google Pixel 8 Pro doesn't have a 3X sensor and doesn't have a 3X mode. So we are recording in the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recording mode on the main wide sensor on all three cameras, S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro, and iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we've got me in the frame as the subject, just seeing how it performs. So we're just going to take a step back and just see how it handles with me in the frame as the subject, with the environment, as well as just a natural stabilization. And we're going to stop for a moment and switch to the ultra-wide on all three camera lenses. Again, just seeing how they perform with the ultra-wide quality. And we're going to stop and go back to the 1X sensor. So we are now in the 2X mode in 4K UHD 30 frames per second on all three cameras. Again, we're just going to stay stationary for this one just to see how they're like, with me in the frame as the subject. So we're now in the 3X mode, and this is optically matching to what we have on the S24 Ultra, as the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max do not have a dedicated 3X telephoto. Same test again, but we've now switched to the 4K UHD 60 frames per second video recorder mode on the S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Pixel 8 Pro. Let's test it to see how the image quality is like with me in the frame as a subject. And we're going to stop and switch to the Ultrawide. And again, just seeing how the changes look like in the Ultrawide mode. And stop, and back to the 1x. Now in the respective 2x mode, still in 4K UHD 60 frames per second on the rear camera. Again, 2x is on the main wide sensors. Just seeing how the image quality is like. We're going to be stationary for this one. Still in 4K UHD 60 frames per second, now in the 3x mode, again matching the optical quality with the digital quality on the S24 Ultra versus the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Video recording mode at 4K 60. We are now in the 8K video recording mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra versus the 4K 30 on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This is on a 1x main sensor, and again, Samsung are still allowing you to fully utilize the high megapixel on the main wide sensor. As you can see, focal length, no additional crop really applied to it. It's great to see. 8K video recording in 30 FPS, a 5x dedicated zoom compared to 4K 30 on a 5x. Pixel and iPhone. Quick autofocusing test on a main wide sensor in 4K 30 on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. You have the macro enhancer on as well, which you can disable. And we're doing this in low light as well. Autofocusing test in 4K 30 on the main camera for the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Autofocusing test in 4K 30 in low light on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Autofocusing test in 4K 30 on the main camera with the Pixel 8 Pro. Autofocusing test in low light in 4K 30 on the main camera with the Pixel 8 Pro. So gone is director's view. Now Samsung have replaced it with their new dual recording feature. But what I really like is you get to pick the two lenses that you want to record with, and it records up to 4K 30 FPS. And you've got the option to either select it and save it as you're seeing right now in picture mode, or as two separate individual files at the same time. That is amazing. Really love this feature. So we are now in the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recording mode on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And again, just seeing how the low light performance is on a front facing camera when it comes to 4K recording. Still in the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recorder mode on the selfie camera, but this time this is with the video portrait mode on the selfie camera, as well as the cinematic on the S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Obviously you can't do this on the Pixel 8 Pro. So we are in the 4K UHD 30 frames per second video recording mode on the S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max. We're just gonna stick to the main camera lens just to give us the best low light performance with me in the frame as the subject. Let's go. So we're gonna have a bit of street lamp come in to see how that helps. And stationary. 5x dedicated zoom, 4K 30 FPS on all three cameras, S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max. So we're trying out the video portrait mode, cinematic mode in low light. Of course, 4K 30 on both the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the S24 Ultra. 1080p 24 FPS on the Pixel. In this particular situation, we are getting notifications that using a flash might help. So we're going to try it individually with flash to see if it helps in any way. So trying out the video portrait mode with flash in 4K 30 on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, seeing if it helps with the flash and the background blur in video. Okay, so this is testing the iPhone with the flash 4K 30 with the cinematic background blur. Hopefully it works this time, because without it in low light, it pretty much doesn't pick up the background blur at all. Alright, so we're doing the cinematic blur on the Pixel 8 Pro. Again, 1080p 24. This time with a flash to see if it helps it better in low light. So we are now in the 4K UHD 30 frames a second video recording mode on the S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max, Pixel 8 Pro, testing out the low light performance and seeing how they perform with lighting, exposure, sharpness and detail. Starting with the main 1X. Gonna stop, switch to the ultra wide, switch to the ultra wide. I'm gonna do 2X. Staying stationary. X, 3X. And 5X. Back to the 1X, back to the 1X. Quick recording in 8K 30 FPS on the main camera on the S24 Ultra versus 4K 30 on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Okay, it's now time to analyze the pictures between the Galaxy S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Pixel 8 Pro, starting with the daytime images in landscape. So let's look at some landscape images, and starting with the ultra wide. First of all, you can see that the image processing on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, especially when you look at the sky, is definitely more saturated, even the grass. The Pixel 8 Pro definitely goes for a much more natural look, my preferred one. And the iPhone 15 Pro Max actually balances out somewhere in between very nicely, which I also really like. But yeah, the Pixel 8 Pro on the ultra wide in this particular scene really does look good. And then when we move over to the main wide sensor, this is of course in daytime. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is processing images at 24 megapixels. The Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro is in the 12 megapixel bin mode. So again, this is what we're seeing. It's very consistent as we move over to the wide. Again, still very deeply saturated with the sky and also the grass when you come to the scene. Still great detail. Much more natural on the Pixel 8 Pro and somewhere in between on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Really depends on which one you actually like, but all three are looking good. Here's another thing. Samsung does actually have a 24 megapixel JPEG and RAW mode, but this is with the Expert RAW. Now, at the time, this is something that was actually told afterwards. So you can activate the 24 megapixel JPEG mode for pictures, but it is in the Expert RAW extension where you have to download it from the Galaxy Store, put it on, and then you can actually see it. So I really hope Samsung actually just brings this into the main camera app, so you can select 12, 24, 50, and 200 megapixels for JPEG, and you can also do this in RAW. So this is the image quality difference. The processing is pretty much the same. In terms of the capture speed, it's quite fast, but processing is a bit, slower by the looks of it, but I think that's just because it's going through export RAW. But yes, you can shoot 24 megapixel JPEGs, as you can also on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This is something that you can't do on the Pixel 8 Pro, but hopefully maybe Google on their next models or in a software update, they might actually bring this out. Now let's move into the extended zoom ranges, and starting with 2x, this is doing a central crop digital zoom on the main wide sensor. And you can see that all of them kind of fall apart in some way, but I will say that the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, to my eye, looks to be holding up quite well, then followed by the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now we're going to 3x. 3x is where the Galaxy S24 Ultra switches to its first tele zoom lens, which gives you optical quality compared to the Pixel 8 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max, who don't have these dedicated lenses and sensors. It is still optically cropping on the main sensor, and clearly you can see Samsung actually still does a lot better, then followed by the iPhone and then the Pixel 8 Pro. Next is 5x. Now it's a 5x battle. Of course, S24 Ultra now has a dedicated 5x zoom lens, which is much larger, high resolution, and it's a great move that they've done. You can see that it really makes a difference in this particular range. Going between 3 to 10 was extreme. Now you have a shorter range and a much bigger sensor with high resolution. It's looking so much better. It's hard to pick which one. It's really down to the color processing. I like the color processing of the Pixel 8 Pro, but the detail across the board is really good. So well done, Samsung, for switching this up. And of course, the other manufacturers of their 5X, really liking it. 10X. So yes, this is now doing an extended zoom on the dedicated 5X tele zoom lenses that all three have. And I know a lot of people are going to be saying that the 10X is not as good, but we'll compare it when we get to the S23 Ultra versus the S22 Ultra camera comparison. So make sure you stay tuned and locked for that. In this particular situation, I will say I do like the Pixel 8 Pro in terms of just the image, the dynamic range, and it looks a lot cleaner overall. And it's pretty much a toss-up between the S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I'll probably lean a bit more towards the S24 Ultra, but all three are really good at 10x. Extending further, we do have 30x on the Pixel 8 Pro and the Galaxy S24 Ultra, whereas the iPhone 15 Pro Max extends up to 25x on a maximum. And you can see here is very similar actually. In fact, the S24 Ultra is definitely doing a better job. You can see more detail in the fence before you can see obviously the Leisure League's letter looking very clear on all three, but overall the image being processed on the S24 Ultra is looking the best out of the three. And of course, you still can extend all the way up to 100x, which is not available on the other two. So overall, in terms of extended zoom range capabilities, yeah, S24 Ultra is still the way to go. Let's run it back again, because these phones have high megapixel JPEG modes as well as RAWs, but we're gonna stick to JPEGs. I did take RAWs, but the time to process them already for this video being long, it's not something I wanted to add, but I might actually upload the RAWs so you can download them and play with them yourself. But hey, I will decide based on the demands, but for now, we're gonna stick to JPEGs. Starting with the ultra-wide, the Pixel 8 Pro can shoot 48 megapixel ultra-wide JPEGs. And what I will do is at each stage, I'll just, do additional crops, label them so you can see for yourself if you can notice any extra details. But it's great to see that this option is there, as the other ultra-wides on the S24 and the iPhone 15 Pro Max are not high resolution. You don't get this option. When you move over to the main wide sensor, you do then have a couple of options for the high resolution JPEG modes, with the Pixel 8 Pro at 50 megapixels, Galaxy S24 Ultra having 50 megapixels, as well as the 200 megapixels, which we're going to move over to next, and then 48 megapixels for the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So again, I will do an additional crop so you can see the extra detail that comes with it. But yeah, these are the high resolution modes for the main wide sensors that you can shoot on all three. And the next high resolution mode for the Galaxy S24 Ultra is the 200 megapixel mode. You can see that the image processing has changed because it's just a larger file, and the processing time is a bit longer, but actually they've really sped it up. It's nowhere near as long as it used to take with the S24 Ultra. So new ISP, new chipset, and the optimizations that's come with it. Yeah, taking 200 megapixel images in JPEG with the right lighting condition is actually a lot quicker than I was expecting it to be. So again, I will apply additional crop so you can see the 200 megapixel detail image in this landscape, but that's the second mode for the S24 Ultra. And then, since you do have a new 50 megapixel 5x dedicated telezoom on the S24 Ultra, it does have the ability to do that in JPEG as well, which is great to see. And that matches up to what you can do on the Pixel 8 Pro's 5x at 48 megapixels. And again, with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it doesn't have a high resolution 5x dedicated, so it does not have that mode. And I will say in this particular situation, the Pixel 8 Pro does look really clean. Looks like Google have really optimized it well, and the colors is something I'm really liking. But overall, the S24 Ultra is quite good as well. Continue with the landscape shots. Now we are taking on some crazy high dynamic range situations. Coming back from San Jose after Unpacked in California, back to the UK. Yeah, it's crazy cold, but at least it's clear skies and sun's out, so I'll take it for these conditions for camera comparisons, so no complaints there. In this particular situation, starting with the ultra wide, definitely the iPhone 15 Pro Max controls the exposure of the sun best, but in terms of the shadow detail of the foreground, the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro really win it, but I would give it to the S24 Ultra because it manages the exposure of the sun and balances out the foreground shadow details really good, so you can see the houses a lot clearer and whatnot. So great ultra wide performance for the S24 Ultra. Moving over to the main wide sensor, again, this is the standard 12 megapixel mode for the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro, whereas obviously in daylight, the 15 Pro Max is processing at 24 megapixels. You can see it's, again, very consistent. I will say that the balance of what we're seeing on the iPhone 15 Pro Max really improves a lot better, so I will still give it to that second after the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro. Last, not because the image is bad, but it doesn't control the exposure of the sun as well, even though the shadow details is good and the detail of the image is nice and crisp. In this particular situation, moving over to 24 megapixel mode, I did take this after, so maybe the position of the sun might have affected the image, but again, this is the image processing that you can see in terms of the 24 megapixels. I hope Samsung really tunes this and just brings it into the main camera app and not leave it in export raw. In the 2x mode, again, you can see that the image is pretty much still favored towards the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but that's more on the detail side of things, but still doesn't handle the exposure when it comes to shadow details on the foreground as well as the Pixel 8 Pro, so it's really down to which one you prefer. And in the 3x mode, we are looking at optical on the S24 Ultra versus the digital, still cropping on the main sensor on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And in this particular situation, no doubt the Galaxy S24 Ultra is winning it. That flexibility of all the different ranges at different focal lengths is really helping it here. And in the 5x, you can see there's a lot of lens glare on the Pixel 8 Pro. It really balances out well on the S24 Ultra. You get less flaring on the iPhone 15 Pro, but again, better shadow detail on the foreground for the S24 Ultra. Running it back again in a high resolution mode, and again with the ultra wide, you can take 48 megapixel JPEGs on the Pixel 8 Pro since it does use a high resolution sensor. I really like the fact that Google are going for near enough the same resolutions on all the lenses at the back. I think that just makes for a much better consistent experience and just more potential to grow. That's just my preferred method rather than mixing and matching too many different resolutions, super high, high, low. And in this particular situation, yeah, it looks really good on the Pixel 8 Pro. And when we move over to the main wide sensor, we do have 50 megapixels on the Pixel 8 Pro, Galaxy S24 Ultra in the 50 megapixel mode, and the 48 megapixel mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. In terms of the image processing, all three are actually really good. The Galaxy S24 Ultra is still managing the exposure of the sun really well. Lens flaring is minimal enough. And also in terms of the shadow detail for the foreground is looking good as well. And again, with the 200 megapixel JPEG mode, you can see that you do lose dynamic range, especially when it comes to the exposure control of the sun, but the processing time has increased. And this is just something to consider when it comes to using this mode. Probably stick to the 50 or the 12 or the 24 in this particular situation. Moving over to the 5x zoom, again, very consistent to their standard modes. And this is something that you do have high resolution on the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro, whereas the iPhone 15 Pro Max doesn't have it. So let me know which one, looks good to you in this particular situation. Less lens flaring on the 15 Pro Max, but better shadow detail and detail overall on the S24 Ultra, and still a nice clean image on a Pixel 8 Pro, just a lot of lens flaring to consider. Let's take a look at some close-up shots. In this particular situation is of my Funko Pop of Cal Kestis and his BB-8 droid. Now, the minimum focusing distance on each lens for the main wide sensor really tells the story here. The iPhone 15 Pro Max, this is something that they've had a problem with since this new sensor was introduced on the iPhone 14 Pro series. You can't really get that close of it with the main sensor, but you can on the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro. Slightly more on the Pixel 8 Pro, not by much. All things considered, you're gonna get a much better experience if you want a natural bokeh blur when it comes to using the main sensor and getting closer. So yes, you do need to depend on macro mode, especially for the 15 Pro Max. And again, with these flagship phones, you do have macro mode that is pulling autofocus from the main ultra wide sensor, from that 0.6 and 0.5 ultra wide field of view. And they look really good. Color processing is really nice on the S24 Ultra. The color processing again on the Pixel 8 Pro, much more natural, so that might be preferred. And the detail and how much closer you can get on the iPhone 15 Pro Max is really good. So I like it there in terms of the finer details. Time for some selfies, front-facing camera action in daylight. And in this particular situation here, I'll be honest with you, man, I would say it's the Pixel 8 Pro because of the skin tones and just a more natural look that you get. And then followed by the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I think the S24 Ultra low-key misses it a bit here, especially on the skin exposure control. I would like that to be better controlled. Moving over to portrait mode, again, I don't have that much hair to work with to really give it that much difficulty, but in this particular situation, I like the natural look of the blur on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But what I don't like is when you're in portrait mode, it crops in ever so slightly, which is weird because if you take a normal selfie picture, the field of view is great, and then you can just go into the edit and change it to a portrait image. So I don't understand why it needs to crop in and sacrifice the field of view, but hey, just something to consider. Apart from that, man, all three are looking good. I'll probably say in this particular situation, the overall image on the Pixel 8 Pro is my preferred one for my skin tone, and then followed by the 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So we switched this up to a more extreme backlit situation. Wouldn't really ever recommend you take selfies in this situation, but yeah, I had the sun out, so I thought let me test it. The color shifting on the S24 Ultra, I don't know whether it's down to the processing or the lens or the sensor. Yeah, I don't really like it too much. I would say it's the Pixel 8 Pro, 15 Pro Max, and the S24 Ultra. And again, the portrait image, I would definitely say, wow, the iPhone actually sticks out and looks hella clean. Really like it there. That in itself, I think it takes it this one in this particular situation, then the Pixel 8 Pro, and then S24 Ultra. Okay, let's put me in the frame as a subject with the rear camera shots. Let's start with the ultra wide, and the ultra wide image on the iPhone 15 Pro Max definitely sticks out to me as the overall image I like the most. But obviously the skin tone processing, focusing on me as a subject, is really good on the Pixel 8 Pro. And the sharpness falls apart a little bit. The image does look a bit softer than I expected on the S24 Ultra, but the overall image is not bad at all. This situation, moving over to the main wide sensor, yes, the Pixel 8 Pro is coming out nice and clean. Then the 15 Pro Max, and then the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which still looks good. But just in terms of preference, I am liking the draw and the look of the Pixel 8 Pro. In the 2X mode here, we would say that the iPhone 15 Pro Max is actually holding up and processing really well, whereas the colors on the S24 Ultra, it leans to a place where I'm not really liking as much as I thought, but it's still a good image. But the Pixel 8 Pro, yeah, that looks clean, man. Definitely for the darker screen persuasion, some people like myself, I'm liking the look of what I'm seeing on there. Now 3x, again, you're working with optical quality with the telephoto at 3x on the S24 Ultra versus the 3x digital zoom on the main sensor on both the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The 15 Pro Max definitely looks the softest, and Pixel 8 Pro actually does a good job. Optically and clarity wise, definitely S24 Ultra, that's the one that's looking good, but I do like the colors on the Pixel 8 Pro. 5x in this particular situation is a battle, and I would say on the human subject, and it was very cold, so you have to consider, as much as we had them on tripods, being as stable as possible. For me personally, the Pixel 8 Pro definitely takes it then 15 Pro Max, then the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Let's run it back with portrait mode. And I'm gonna say this is gonna be a very interesting showcase, because in terms of portrait mode, the most flexible out of all of them, out of the gate with no modifications needed, is the Galaxy S24 Ultra, because you get the option of a 1x mode, a 2x mode, 3x, and also a 5x mode. Because of that extra dedicated 3x sensor, it makes the flexibility of shooting portrait mode out of the gate with no image processing or editing much better on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. When it comes to the iPhone and the Pixel 8 Pro, it does crop in a little bit more, so you're probably getting a field of view that is more 1.5x even on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I like the natural look of the blur on the 15 Pro Max. I've got to give it to them. It's a bit more subtle on the S24 Ultra, and you do have it much more artificial but intense on the Pixel 8 Pro. Let's move over 2x, and again, staying consistent. Yeah, the natural look of the blur when it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max is something I really like. It just looks more natural, but the edge detection and the blur, even in between the gaps of my arms, works well on all of them. But I will say the 15 Pro Max is the one that looks a bit more consistent, then followed by the Galaxy S24 Ultra. 3x, here's where you're gonna run into some differences in what you can and can't do when it comes to taking portrait mode. No issues for the Galaxy S24 Ultra. It's using a dedicated 10 megapixel 3x tele to be able to do the portrait mode. Love to see it, no issues there, looks good. Pixel 8 Pro does have a 3x mode, but what you have to do is, it doesn't show you, you have to press and hold it down for it to go into 3x. Now it's doing an additional crop on the main sensor to do that, so it doesn't look all that great, and the edge detection and the blur is just patchy, kind of intense on the top right, subtle on the bottom. It's all over the place. I'm not really a fan of this particular mode. The iPhone 15 Pro Max doesn't have a dedicated 3x, and actually when you go into the portrait mode interface, it gives you 1, 2, and 5. So how do you do 3x? Again, you can take an image at a 3x digital crop, and then, as you will probably see with the image I'm going to bring up here for the video, you can then go into the Photos app, go into edit. If you take enough of a good image for it to have all the data that it can map out, it will give you the portrait option to select and then see it. And when we do that, bam, there's portrait mode 3x on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. That's how you get around it. So it's great that flexibility is there, you know, after the fact. But again, off the gate, you got to give it to the S24 Ultra. It just has it and no need for it. And the roles reverse for the Pixel 8 Pro when we go into the 5x zoom mode for portrait mode. Again, S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Man, 5x portrait, it requires a lot of space, but if you've got it, my goodness, it just slaps. Look at the iPhone 15 Pro Max and look at that Galaxy S24 Ultra. The background blur, the compression, the detail, yeah, it's looking good. I will give it, like, iPhone 15 Pro Max is looking clean. You can't do this on, you know, on the Pixel 8 Pro out the gate. But again, same as before, if you go into the edit and it's able to capture a good shot with all the information and the depth, you can edit this to add the portrait effect within the Pixel editor for photos. And as you can see, bang. Again, I don't think it looks as natural as what you see on the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S24 Ultra, but again, you can do it this way to get 5x portrait. And when you do, man, all three look really clean. Running it back in the high resolution modes that they take. And again, of course, on the ultra wide, the Pixel 8 Pro does allow you to do a 48 megapixel JPEG, whereas the others don't. And then moving over to the main wide sensor, you do have a 50 megapixel mode on both the Pixel 8 Pro and the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and a 48 megapixel mode on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. In this particular situation, the image does look a little bit softer. We tried it multiple times, and it looks like focusing can be a bit difficult when it comes to high resolution mode on a human subject. So maybe something to consider when it comes to that. And we pretty much, I think, had a similar issue with the 200 megapixel, but more detailed there, more information. If you do nail the focus, it is a lot better to have on the S24 Ultra, but the other two are looking absolutely clean. And again, of course, you do have the high resolution mode on a 5x for both the Pixel 8 Pro and the S24 Ultra at 50 megapixels and 48 megapixels. And man, I have to say, that Google Pixel 8 Pro does look good. And also the detail on the S24 Ultra is not bad as well. I also did a test to see how the capturing speed performance was in their default binned mode at obviously 24 megapixel JPEG for the iPhone 15 Pro Max and 12 megapixels for the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro. I did this by a running motion towards the camera as well as a jumping motion. as well in that particular situation. Again, I don't know if this is going to be the best way to be indicative of it, but you'll see a demonstration. The capture speed on the S24 Ultra has greatly improved compared to the S23 Ultra and previous Ultra phones. This is a step in the right direction. And you can see that in order, I will say the iPhone 15 Pro Max did perform the best, then followed by the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and then the Pixel 8 Pro really struggled. So in terms of capturing a lot of images non-blurred or capturing a lot of images in general, the Pixel 8 Pro didn't do that well. And the S24 Ultra, as well as it did in the running and the jumping, I realized there was just a lot of weird artifacting between measuring the exposure of the sun and capturing me as the human subject. So maybe some fine tuning is needed, but no issues on the 15 Pro Max. But yeah, I'm just gonna run it through as quickly as possible. You can pause it at each section to see for yourself. This is the capture speed test, running and jumping. As Rihanna would say, turn off the lights in here, baby. Let's look at some low light images of the Galaxy S24 Ultra, Pixel 8 Pro, and iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let's start with some landscape images, and this is the SAP Center or SAP Center. What is it? Is it SAP or SAP Center? Let me know in the comment section below. San Jose, California. This is where this year's Unpacked was for the Galaxy S24 series, and a surprise Galaxy Ring announcement, which, hey, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But I digress. Coming back to what we have here with the Ultrawide, it's definitely between the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. If you look at the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S24 Ultra, you can clearly see the SAP Center logo and sign where it says blown out on the Pixel 8 Pro. The processing, as well as even the image of the monitor on the left, is just not there. So definitely between the S24 Ultra and the 15 Pro Max. Moving over to the main wide sensor, in low light situations, the iPhone 15 Pro Max then defaults to 12 megapixel bin compared to 24 megapixels in daylight. So just something to consider in respect to. And all three are looking really good. For some reason, I will say I really do like the look of the iPhone 15 Pro Max overall, and then followed by the Galaxy S24 Ultra and also the Pixel 8 Pro. But all three are actually really good in the main wide sensor. 2x modes. So the detail here that I'm seeing, I would say the Pixel 8 Pro really does a good job to clean it up. If you're looking at the Barack Obama Boulevard sign, that's another indication of it, as well as obviously the sign below the Kaiser sign, where the traffic lights are in between where the SAP Center is, looking good as well. All three are actually doing great, but I would say the Pixel 8 Pro really cleans up well in that 2x. In the 3x mode, in this particular situation, the Galaxy S24 Ultra did struggle, tried to take it multiple times. It was just not really capturing how I was expecting it to in 3x. And this particular one, again, Pixel 8 Pro, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Moving over to the main 5x sensor, man, all three are looking really good and clean. I do like, again, the look of the Pixel 8 Pro, and also it's somewhere between what you would actually prefer when it comes to the iPhone 15 Pro Max and also the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Hard to pick. I'll probably say the S24 Ultra, but really can't go wrong with either. Running it back in low light with the high megapixel modes on the ultra wide, you can do that on 48 megapixels on the Pixel 8 Pro, but honestly, it doesn't really look good in terms of the processing. Can't see the SAP logo compared to the other two, which are not high resolution, of course. When we move over to the main wide sensor, you've got high resolution mode all activated at 50 megapixels between the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro, 48 megapixels on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I will say the 15 Pro Max's image processing is looking quite good, then followed by the Pixel 8 Pro and the S24 Ultra, even though the detail is good across the board. Then we move over to the 200 megapixel mode, and I'm actually quite surprised that it processed it really well and gave a nice clean image, and the processing time was very quick. So yeah, in this particular situation where you've got low light, but there's buildings and lights, it probably still could work okay. And of course, you do have the 5x high resolution mode between the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro. In this particular situation, I do like the look of the Pixel 8 Pro, more detail that you can see overall. So maybe some fine tuning needs to be done on the new 5x, but overall, I'm happy it's there and it looks good overall. Now with this next set of landscape images, the initial shots I take are without night mode for a faster capturing experience compared to night mode, which you really need to be still and have a much longer exposure, which doesn't always work best. So something to consider why I like to show the differences. And with the ultra wide, the color shifting on the lights, where you can see that magenta hue on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, is something that's been pronounced and prevalent for ages now. I really hope they sort it out. The other two have a much cleaner image. I do like the one that I'm seeing on the Pixel 8 Pro and also the 15 Pro Max. Moving over to the main wide sensor, clean image across the board, really good on a Pixel 8 Pro and also the iPhone 15 Pro Max as well as the S24 Ultra. Hard to pick between the three, is really down to which one you like. Moving over to the 2x zoom mode, the image integrity I would say is good across the board. I can't really tell the difference between the three apart from a slightly more saturated image that you see on the S24 Ultra, followed by the 15 Pro Max and a much more natural image on the Pixel 8 Pro. 3x in this particular situation, it looks like the S24 Ultra was struggling with the light haze, whereas the image is held up a lot better on the Pixel 8 Pro and also followed by the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And in the 5x zoom mode, although you do get a brighter image on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it does come at the cost of a much softer image. Yes, it's darker on S24 Ultra, details preserved, whereas the Pixel 8 Pro I think strikes the balance well on both. Quick apologies for this next set of shots with the night mode active. I think I forgot to do the night mode for the ultra wide on the S24 Ultra. I've just put a placeholder for the wide shot in night mode. Again, we're going to be doing some ultra wide shots when I'm in the frame as a subject, so you can see the difference with and without night mode. But in this particular situation, just focus on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And then when we move over to the main wide sensor, yes, it's all matching, main wide sensor, all with night mode making a nice difference, cleaning up the image and brightening it up. Still more saturated on the S24 Ultra. So if you do like that look, you can go for it, but I know more people prefer a much more natural look, which the Pixel 8 Pro caters for, and the iPhone 15 Pro Max striking a balance in between there. But again, you can go into the image processing pipeline in settings and change the different photographic styles on the iPhone. Just something to remember if you want the image processing beforehand to be different compared to the standard mode. But we're in standard mode now, so we're just working with that. Again, 2x mode in the zoom, still consistent with the image processing, more saturated on the Samsung, balanced on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and much more toned down and neutral on the Pixel 8 Pro. 3x again, same consistency. You can see that the night mode really clears things up, adds more integrity. It really helps the S24 Ultra in this particular situation with better clarity and a much better performing image overall. And in the 5x mode, again, really brightens up and cleans up the exposure. Makes a much bigger difference for the S24 Ultra if you compare it without night mode. So yeah, moving forward, these are the three when it comes to 5x with night mode active. It's time for some selfie images in low light, and in this particular situation, the overall experience is definitely, in my opinion, going to go to the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro. Why? In the standard shooter mode, yes, you can shoot standard selfies with night mode active, which performs really well on the S24 Ultra and across the board for all three devices. And you can use the front screen flash to have a much brighter exposure if you want that particular look. But when it comes to portrait mode, the image really softens up on the 15 Pro Max. And I think this is just all down to the fact that it's cropping in an additional on the focal length. It doesn't help it. Pixel 8 Pro looks really clean. The Galaxy S24 Ultra looks less noisy, but at the lack of detail. But you can do night mode and portrait mode together at the same time on the S24 Ultra and the Pixel 8 Pro. This is still a limitation on the 15 Pro Max, not sure why, but you cannot do night mode and portrait selfie together, but you can use the front screen flash to help it. But again, the image still falls apart, and the Pixel 8 Pro and the S24 Ultra do look really good with the front screen flash and portrait selfie at the same time. Last set of low light images and images overall with the rear camera with me in the frame as the subject. And again, this one I did remember to do the ultra wide without night mode to start with and night mode afterwards to see the difference. So use that as reference in this particular situation. And of course, you do have a good image performance on the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the 15 Pro Max. Pixel 8 Pro is actually not bad in this particular situation with a human subject in the frame. So yeah, I think all three are okay in this particular situation. Moving over to the main wide sensor, you do get a much more detailed and natural look on the Pixel 8 Pro. I really like that. And then a much more brightly exposed image on the S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max holding up a good image as well. So actually all three in a way are doing great. 2x, you do actually see the image fall apart a lot more on the S24 Ultra, and the image holds up much better on the Pixel 8 Pro, then followed by the 15 Pro Max. 3x in this particular situation, the S24 Ultra didn't perform as well as we were expecting, so take that into consideration. I will say the Pixel 8 Pro and then the 15 Pro Max. Pixel 8 Pro more because it does have a much more detailed image, but yeah, the iPhone 15 Pro Max actually held up really well. 5x, the exposure much brighter on the 15 Pro Max, but at the cost of a much more muddy and softer image. It is darker on the S24 Ultra, but actually it is much more detailed and less noisy. And the Pixel 8 Pro again tries to balance the two, but it's a hard one. I'll probably go with the S24 Ultra just because it holds the detail enough as well as still gives a good enough exposure for it. Let's activate night mode. You can see night mode actually really cleans up the image well. I would say what's more subtle is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I kind of like the look of that a lot more. The S24 Ultra is definitely brighter, but it kind of overpowers it in a way where it might need to be toned down. And I do like the overall colors of the foliage and the greenage around on the Pixel 8 Pro. And that actually balances out well with the skin tones and detail of me in the frame as the subject. Moving over to the main wide sensor, again, a much more natural and subtle way that is done on the 15 Pro Max that I really like. The brightness and exposure much more controlled in the S24 Ultra with a nicer wider field of view. And of course the Pixel 8 Pro as well does a great job. Yeah, night mode in the main wide sensor, really worth using in this particular situation. In the 2x mode, the image integrity on the Pixel 8 Pro is definitely the best, then followed by the S24 Ultra, and then the iPhone 15 Pro Max with night mode active. And we'll move over to the 3x zoom. Yes, the 3x zoom now works much better in night mode for the S24 Ultra. So night mode with the 3x on the S24 Ultra is definitely the way to go. And then in this particular situation, I like the look of the 15 Pro Max and then followed by the Pixel 8 Pro. Now with the 5x zoom with night mode active, I will say the image on the Pixel 8 Pro is definitely the softest. So it's between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Yes, clarity is there, but the image processing and the colors is definitely preferred on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. They definitely need to tune this a bit more when it comes to the colors, but clarity and exposure wise, night mode makes a huge difference. And then we're running it back again with flash. And with the flash active, you can use the flash with the ultra wide on the Pixel 8 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I was given a lot of feedback to the Samsung imaging team about this, but I actually forgot to feedback, and this is a usability miss in terms of what you can do. Why is this useful? If you're doing a group picture with a couple of people and you don't want to use the main wide sensor because you can't step back, and you want to use the ultra wide and then use flash instead of night mode, yeah, you should still be able to use it. Samsung, please update this and just allow us to use the flash on ultra wide. It will be greatly appreciated. Moving over to the main wide sensor, I will tell you this, man, the flash performance on the iPhone is ridiculously good, bright and well done. This is something that Apple focused on that I think is such a hidden gem, where flash photography on the iPhone I think is really good. Pixel 8 Pro does a good job, something that still needs to be worked on for the S24 Ultra and Samsung phones in general. Again, we move over to the 2x mode. I would say that the Samsung actually performs really well here in this particular situation, followed by the Pixel 8 Pro, then the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which does have the softest image. And then moving over to the 3x, again, there's a lot of red eye that you're seeing. Still, again, much better on the Galaxy S24 Ultra with the flash because it is using the dedicated 3x. And then the image seems a little bit more processed on the Pixel 8 Pro, but I'll take it for a much more detailed look compared to the 15 Pro Max. And then 5x wise, yeah, the flash performance on the S24 Ultra, it's not strong enough to be reaching there for it to really benefit. But you are seeing the Pixel 8 Pro winning this particular one, then followed by the 15 Pro Max. Another set of quick apologies: when using the portrait mode without night mode active, the images on the S24 Ultra, yes, they do not match the 15 Pro Max and Pixel 8 Pro. I'll call it out myself. It was a long day into the night. I thought we had those images, but again, you will see that when we have night mode active, we did have them. I might have deleted the images by accident, wasn't too sure. But again, if you look at it, the portrait mode performance without night mode active is actually not bad on all three. The edge detection on the S24 Ultra is something that has really greatly improved compared to before, so it's great to see that performance. In the 2x mode, again, very consistent. I would say that in terms of the edge detection and the blur, S24 Ultra is looking great. You can see that the Pixel 8 Pro struggles in that particular situation at nighttime, and the iPhone 15 Pro Max, probably using the LiDAR sensor, really helps it. And then the 3x, again, you cannot do 3x on the portrait mode for the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and at nighttime it's really hard to detect it to then transform it into a 3x images for low lights with portrait. So just something to consider. And then the 5x mode, again, the image is very soft on the iPhone. The image for the 5x portrait mode on the S24 Ultra looks cinematic and anamorphic in some ways, so it's really good that they're able to do that in low light for portrait. And the Pixel 8 Pro only goes up to 3x. Now here they do match. This is with night mode active, and again, the iPhone 15 Pro Max has a limitation where you can only do portrait mode with night mode active on the 1x sensor. You can't do it in the 2x mode, and it doesn't allow you to do it on the 5x. So that's something to consider. You can use flash to help it, which I'm going to show you next afterwards. But yeah, it's 1x all the way for portrait night mode for the 15 Pro Max, whereas you're getting maximum flexibility when it comes to the S24 Ultra especially, and Pixel 8 Pro. So 2x mode that you can see right now, again, you do have the ability to do that. You can't do that on the iPhone 15 Pro Max as stated. And I would say the Pixel 8 Pro actually holds up really well. And then the Galaxy S24 Ultra, the color processing is something that's slightly off, but again, the blur does look good. You go into the 3x mode, the clarity on the S24 Ultra is definitely best when it comes to it. The edge detection is excellent for low light, and it comes to doing that, the blur looks really good. I really like the look of the portrait mode of the 3x with night mode active. Then yeah, look at that, the 5x here with portrait mode active. Yeah, this level of flexibility out of the gate. Yes, there might be some fine tuning that needs to be done, but overall, man, you can just see it. It just looks phenomenally good. Being able to do 5x with night mode in portrait on the Galaxy S24 Ultra, most flexible portrait shooting experience that you've got out of the gate. Now we're running it back with flash, and this is more to help the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And it really does make a difference because the flash performance on the 15 Pro Max is really good. So being able to mix that with the portrait mode, yeah, it's the best way to do that at nighttime. And you can see that the difference with the iPhone 15 Pro Max is looking really good across the board. Then followed by the S24 Ultra, and the Pixel 8 Pro looking good as well. And when we switch over to the 3x mode with the flash, yeah, the Galaxy S24 Ultra does struggle with the flash and portrait mode together. So much better to use night mode with portrait when it comes to that. 2x, the image is still a bit soft on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, whereas you have that on the Pixel 8 Pros looking really good. And in the 5x mode, again, as powerful as the flash is, it struggles to really reach that far for the 15 Pro Max, but it does at least allow you to be able to activate the portrait mode in low light. And the flash on the Pixel 8 Pro is looking good. And on the 5x for the portrait mode on the S24 Ultra, much better compared to the 3x. So definitely something to consider. So you all made it to the end for this camera comparison, which I really appreciate the support. And it was a big one, but let's talk details about how you can be in with a chance to win a brand new Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. First of all, this will be a global giveaway, so this will give more people an opportunity to enter to win. Next, what we have in terms of the details of this giveaway is that we'll be running it for 30 days after this video goes live. So we'll put the exact end date in the description below. We do need this video to hit 10K likes or as close as possible. That's something that's going to really help with the activator of this, but I'm confident you'll be able to do that because you're going to see value in this particular video and want to win a brand new Galaxy S24 Ultra. You have to be subscribed and following me on both X or as they call it, Twitter from before, and Instagram, because that's where I'll be announcing the winners, so I'm able to actually contact you to verify. Once you are contacted, you will have 48 hours to respond, or else a new winner will be picked at random. Make sure you put a comment below for your favorite feature on the Galaxy S24 Ultra and how you'll be using it. Do not leave your social media handle name in the comment section below, because most likely YouTube is going to auto delete it. And be very aware to look at my official account as the person that's replying that you are a winner, so you can obviously not be scammed in any way. Now, the best way you have a higher chance to be actually noticed and indicated is if you take a screenshot or screen grab of your comment and reply underneath the Twitter post of the video. This is something that's going to make it much easier for me to identify who you are. So you have to have a public account, be able to be contacted on X, or Twitter as they call it, and Instagram, for you to be in a chance to win. Now, of course, full details will be in the description below. This is my way of giving back to you to say thank you, to really support these type of videos. So best of luck to everyone with this S24 Ultra giveaway. Now let's summarize the video performance, because I did give you a lot of time to see how these phones match up when it comes to video performance. Start the selfie, and it's definitely going to be more between the Galaxy S24 Ultra and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, the colors on the Pixel 8 Pro are great, but the feature sets are not entirely there like what you get with the Samsung and the iPhone, especially with the ability to shoot video portrait mode and a selfie camera in 4K. So hopefully Google addresses it in their next models to be able to do that, and you do get that flexibility as showcased from before. In terms of the image quality, you do lose slight dynamic range in 4K 60 on a selfie. This is something iPhones have been doing for time, not sure why, but in 4K 30 both are equally as good, and you do get a slightly wider field of view on the selfie, which I do prefer on the iPhones and the Pixel compared to the Samsung. But overall, Samsung, when it comes to selfie video performance and that match to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, yeah, those are the ones to really look at. Now, when it comes to the main cameras at the back, when it comes to video, wow, where do we even begin? The improvements to video that Samsung have brought forward, they've not held anything back. The ability to shoot 8K video on the new 5x 50 megapixel sensor, the fact that you've got the maximum flexibility in 4K video recording at 60 FPS to switch between all the lenses, not just the back lenses like what you get on a Pixel or on the iPhone, but full flexibility. Selfie camera, back cameras, pause, take pictures, continue, all recording on the same clip. Thank you, Samsung. You now officially have the most powerful and flexible video camera to record with in 60 FPS and 4K. Love this. Absolutely chuffed about it. And it took even further. You've got 4K 120 on the ultra wide and the main wide sensor if you go into the video pro mode. If you're just in the slow motion mode, it is 4K 120 as an option, but only on the main wide sensor. So if you want more flexibility, go to the video pro mode, and it shoots it as individual frames, so you can slow it down yourself rather than in the slow motion where it slows it down for you or conforms it for you. Again, that level of flexibility really makes it such a pro level feature. Gotta give it to Apple though. You have much more flexibility with slow motion in all the camera lenses, but the image quality is just not as high as 4K 120. So I'm glad it got rid of the 960, focused on actually increasing 4K 120 there on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. And there's just so much that you can consider, like video portrait mode. You can change the blur position and the blur intensity after the recording on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. You've got log mode on there for the iPhone 15 Pro Max for maximum dynamic range. The Pixel 8 Pro, although it's an offline feature, you've got video boost that works in 4K and 30 FPS. No 60 FPS option for that, but that's an offline mode. So that's something you can do to consider and work with. Man, video performance on these smartphones is just moving in a crazy direction, and I just hope they just keep building on it. This is really good from Samsung, and arguably it's probably going to be my favorite video camera to use on a smartphone because of 4K 120, 8K on the zoom, and also the maximum flexibility you get with the 4K 60 with lens switching, including the selfie, and also dual recording in 4K 30 as well with two cameras at the same time. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. This is just great stuff to see. So yeah, video performance wise, you honestly cannot go wrong with either. Now that is it between my ultimate camera comparison between the Galaxy S24 Ultra, iPhone 15 Pro Max, and the Pixel 8 Pro. If you made it to the end, make sure you put a fist bump emoji in the comments so I know that you're a real one. Really appreciate the support on this one, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.